This Week in Startups is brought to you by PagerDuty, serving as the hub of your operations, aggregating all of your infrastructure monitoring tools and alerting the right people and teams at the right time. Sign up today at pagerduty.com/twist and get a free t-shirt when you get your first alert. And Wistia. Take control of your video marketing with powerful tools and analytics built specifically for business. Go to wistia.com/twist to get your free Wistia account today.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. Today on the program, Babak Hodjat, who is the co-founder and chief scientist at a company called Sentient, and he is one of the people behind Siri. You may have used her on your iPhone. And we have a rambling, detailed talk about artificial intelligence. What is AI? What isn't AI? And this is one of those episodes that I think will be a seminal episode of This Week in Startups. In other words, this will be the episode where a lot of people understand and start to invest in and start to deploy artificial intelligence in their startup companies. And really, it's one of the best episodes of the year. You're going to love it. You're probably going to want to listen to it twice. Enjoy.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this is the podcast where, at least for the past 7 years, we've talked with venture capitalists, angel investors, and founders about the future. And the future through the lens of entrepreneurship, and the founders who take on huge problems and create products, services, and technologies that are, let's face it, changing the course of humanity and our species. This is heady stuff that we talk about here, but we like to talk to our audience about it. And let me just tell you about our audience. About a third of them, a third of you, are already founders building companies. A third of you are probably working at companies, maybe entrepreneurial, maybe not, thinking about maybe doing something more entrepreneurial. A third of you might be students or people from outside the industry, just generally interested in technology. Well, we like to take on the most challenging topics and things that are emerging. Perhaps one of the technologies that's had the most stops and starts, but is now starting to get traction is artificial intelligence. It's a term that I've been hearing since the 80s, we've all been hearing, but that we've never really used all that much. And we have a lot of people calling things AI that maybe aren't exactly artificial intelligence. Well, today on the program, we have a company that is pursuing artificial intelligence in the truest sense of the fashion, and that company is Sentient, which I believe was formed in 2007. And my guest today is the co-founder and chief scientist, Babak. Got it right? Babak Hodjat. Hodjat.
Yes, beautiful.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You started Sentient back in 2007. What was the mission and what led you to create this company, and what does the company do?
We are a rare case of a startup that's actually remained relatively faithful to our original.
No pivots.
Yeah, not that many. So when I look back in 2007, my co-founder had this idea of, let's imagine we had lots and lots of processing capacity. And we had some sort of software, and his hunch was it's going to be some sort of AI that scales with that processing capacity. And then we use it to solve very, very complex problems. And in that case, the most complex problem we could think of was trading.
Trading?
Yeah. So imagine you're running this AI, and it becomes more and more powerful the more processing capacity you throw at it. And therefore, your trading is better, you make more money, and you take some of the proceeds, add to the processing capacity, and you have this virtuous cycle. And that's the genesis for Sentient.
Okay. Let's talk about AI and just get some definitions. For you, what is the definition of artificial intelligence? And what isn't artificial intelligence, but that people frequently maybe confuse with artificial intelligence? Right. So we have machine learning, we have automated assistants now. Take me through how you sort of create a framework of artificial intelligence and what is and what isn't. Hard, soft, et cetera.
All right. in my opinion, and there are many opinions
Right.
here, as many as there are definitions for intelligence. In my opinion, every time we actually are inspired by biological intelligence, and that might be human intelligence, in writing code that has a level of independence in solving problems and autonomy, we're talking about artificial intelligence.
So independent problem solving
Yes.
is a pretty good place to start.
And inspired by natural intelligence.
So why is that it's inspired by natural intelligence? And when we say natural intelligence, we mean our species, human beings' brains. Why is it that we look to our brains as, sort of the gold standard?
Nature solves problems, at least that's the way we look at it, and it solves problems in a very efficient and generalizable manner. And the human brain is a very good example of that. But it's, in my opinion, intelligence is not restricted only to the human intelligence.
Sure.
I think through time, our species, life itself, actually solves problems.
This whole Darwin thing that's been going around.
Through evolution.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And simply by, surviving. And if we can codify that, we can solve very, very difficult problems. Problems that are even more difficult than problems that our mind, actually, our brain solves today. So in my definition of artificial intelligence, we don't constrain ourselves to something that works as well or very similar to the human brain.
Because that is some people's definition, is that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a human and a computer's way of looking at solving a problem. So when we see companies coming out with, let's say, artificial intelligence powered assistants, like Facebook I think has one, where you can request things, or there's calendaring apps now, but they have humans on the back end looking at the text and then sort of massaging it. And it maybe is more like a decision tree. When you look at those kind of things, is that really artificial intelligence in your mind? Or is it people sort of capitalizing on AI is in the news?
That's such a great question. The fact is, if you go all the way back to Turing, when he defined intelligence, he actually didn't define it. He said, there's this black curtain, and behind it something's going on, and if it tricks you into thinking it's intelligence, it's intelligence. It's a way of evading the question itself. What is intelligence, right? It's kind of leaving it up to us to make that definition. And I think the same holds even today. I had a role in the technology that goes behind Siri, and years ago we put a system out that was an assistant and used natural language processing, and you could ask it, in fact, for trading-related S&P 500 queries. As soon as we put it on our website, people were asking it, "Who's your CEO? Tell me the meaning of life. Give me a joke," or cursing at it.
Yeah.
And so very quickly we found out, okay, there's this expectation of intelligence, even though we've told people that you're going to be talking about trading. What people are expecting from it is very human-like. And we added a whole bunch of, an aura of applicability beyond what it was supposed to do, including, what is the meaning of life? Let's just, randomly pick something from that list and return it to the users. And in fact, that aspect of it, and if you look at Siri today, that aspect of Siri is what makes people think it's very intelligent. It's the least intelligent piece of the code.
It's the soft stuff that makes it feel human and warm and fuzzy. I mean, we are seeing kids, I don't know if you've seen videos on the internet, but now my daughter, and I watch some of her friends, she's going to be 6 years old, they love talking to Siri.
Yep.
They love this idea of asking her questions, and to them, it's a person. It's not, so it's sort of passing the Turing test with this next generation.
It is.
On some level.
And it's inspiring them to actually use it more. So, whether or not we should avoid putting that sort of functionality into an assistant simply because it's not smart, I actually think we should put that in there, because it actually makes for a more delightful interaction. It makes for people to actually use the system versus, oh, it's too robotic, it's too artificial, we're not going to use it.
So your company has raised, and it's really interesting because you've been able to keep Sentient very quiet. You don't do a ton of press, so thanks for coming, by the way.
Thank you.
Did you not do a bunch of press for the first couple of years intentionally because you didn't want to be part of the hype cycle? Because now you've raised over $140 million. It's much more than any other company, I think including DeepMind, which was purchased by Google. How many people work at this secretive company, and is it a secretive company? Was that part of the plan?
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore. Now you're coming out. Yeah.
Exactly. Up until November of last year, we were in stealth mode. There's no reason for us to actually market ourselves. We were using our AI exclusively for trading. And here's one of the reasons I really like AI. You know, you write code or AI. Here's the reason, that we actually use trading. I like trading is because you write code, and if the code works, it makes money. You don't have any middleman, no sales, no marketing.
Pretty definitive, isn't it?
Very definitive. But a year and a half ago, with the success of the evolutionary computation scale to solve the trading problem, we decided let's look at other technologies that might scale just as well, and other areas where we could make money. And we looked into deep learning combined with online learning applied for visual intelligence systems. And that's when it started making sense for us to, advertise our existence.
What did you accomplish in the trading space? Because I look at a lot of startups, and when I have people come to me with, every year I get 2 or 3 companies that say, we are able to, through sentiment analysis, and I'm like, sediment? Like in the bottom of the ocean? No, sentiment, Jason, sentiment analysis. We can look at what people are saying in newspapers, in message boards on Twitter and Facebook, and decide what trades to make, and then we're going to sell that to the banks. And always my reaction is, well, if you know sentiment, why don't we just give you some money and have you start trading and doubling it every 6 months or something? It makes no sense to sell this technology. It never works. So what have you accomplished in actual trading? Because you wouldn't be in business as long if it didn't work. We just said before, it's pretty binary. Either it works for people or it doesn't. So what's an example of something you've accomplished? And if it is working, why don't you just take that 140 million or 100 million or whatever's left and just start trading yourself?
Very good question. So part of the reason why we didn't want to talk about the trading side is exactly what you mentioned. If you actually have a really good trading algorithm, you don't advertise it. You don't put it as an API out there on the web for people to go use.
Competitive advantage.
Sorry?
It's a competitive advantage?
It is a competitive advantage, and it just gets arbitraged away. So, but our approach was quite unique. Rather than looking for, some sort of pattern in, an equity curve, and deciding, okay, is this thing going to go up or down, and then handing that information as a classification off to the next step in the pipeline to decide how to trade it. We thought, well, at the end of the day, it's about decision making. It's not simply about pattern matching. And so let's come up with a rule set. The complete code for a robot, if you like, that would actually automatically trade. So this is sort of a meta programming. It's a program that writes its own code.
Wow.
So we use the evolutionary computation to, in a very massively distributed scaled way, actually author the code for trading strategies.
Okay. Now let my simple mind catch up with your 17 PhDs for a second. You are creating code that will look at trading data and then decide what code to write next to analyze what parts of that data it's sort of like being a detective, figuring out the next clue and the next possible place where they should put the CPUs towards. Is that right?
That's pretty close. So
Okay.
what it does is it actually says, okay, it works the other way around. So evolution is funny that way. You write some code, and that code is actually going to be a really, really disastrous trader. But it's a trader. It will make decisions to buy and sell and short and so forth. You write that code, and you let it trade. And you let it trade over some historical data. And it's going to be a disaster, but it's going to be probably less bad than some other code that you've also written. And remember, you're writing this code many, many times over on many, many CPUs. We're running on more than 1.5 million CPUs, running for months. You go through 4 or 5 trillion such pieces of code, and you are very intelligently combining them, the better ones. And ultimately, you get the code that works quite well, consistently, and generalizes.
Okay.
So that's how the code gets authored.
This is mind-blowing to me because I actually understand what you're doing. You're making whatever it is in terms of millions or billions of simulations, watching all the you're making the million monkeys with a billion typewriters and seeing who comes up with Shakespeare by looking at the actual results and if it reads well and entertains people in the theater. When we get back from this commercial break, I want you to explain to me, and maybe you're going to be able to show me some stuff?
I can show
we
you
have a
some
demo.
stuff,
So when we get back, I want you to demo a little bit of this artificial intelligence we're talking about here from Sentient, which is the world's most funded AI company, and the one that everybody's really talking about, hand in hand with the one that Elon Musk was an investor in, and Larry Page wound up buying and causing a whole rift in the AI community. Elon didn't want them to sell, Larry Page did want to buy them, and DeepMind was bought. I want you to answer that question. Are you worried, like Elon Musk is, about the machines becoming sentient when we get back after these messages? Hey everybody, let me take a moment to tell you about PagerDuty. If you don't know what PagerDuty is, it's the thing that developers hate most in their lives. It's when they are at their kids' soccer game or recital. It's when they're at the movies. It's when they're at the gym, they're running a half marathon, and the pager goes off and something's wrong with the servers. Now, there is a solution for this. One, you got to build great systems that are redundant, of course, but still somebody needs to be on call because it's not always your fault. Sometimes like some fiber optic line goes down or your hosting company screws up or hardware gets borked. Anything can happen, you know that. And being on call is really brutal because you get these constant alerts, and PagerDuty aggregates all of those monitoring tools. You have all these different monitoring tools. It puts it all into one place, and it pays for itself by keeping developers happy because it sends only the alerts that are necessary to only the people who are on duty, and you can roll. And you don't want to roll your own monitoring system like this. You want to use a professional system like PagerDuty. They've done all the work. It would take you literally years of development time to build this awesome system they've built, and consumers love the apps. They have iOS and Android apps because a lot of your developers are going to be on Android, obviously. And this lets them be on the go and receive alerts. And all the top PagerDuty clients are obvious: Atlassian with HipChat, Pinterest, New Relic, Airbnb, Panasonic, Slack, Path. All these great companies use PagerDuty because they want to keep their developers happy and make sure that their systems are up and running. In fact, Chartbeat, which is one of the companies I've invested in, uses PagerDuty, and PagerDuty gives Chartbeat one central place to send critical alerts. We now have a simple, easy process for on-call scheduling, says Justin Lintz, who is the senior operations engineer at Chartbeat. So here's your call to action, everybody. Go ahead and sign up for a 14-day trial at pagerduty.com/twist, pagerduty.com/twist. Get a free t-shirt when you sign up for your first alert. And thank you so much to our friends at PagerDuty because they build a great product that keeps developers engaged and loving their jobs. Thanks again at PagerDuty. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. Today my guest, Babak Hodjat, who is the co-founder and chief scientist at Sentient and has been since 2007. They've raised over $140 million. They've got almost 100 employees, and he worked on the technology behind Siri as well. And when we left our hero, he had created 1 billion bad traders, good traders, everything in between, and then studied the best aspects of each one to find the uber trader, the best trader. So you've actually done this to find out what would a great trader look like. And what is the result of that? Does it give people a tremendous edge in trading, a little edge in trading? Because a little edge over a large number of transactions is a huge edge, as I know from poker. I mean, if you are 1% better than another player, you're going to want to play those 10,000 hands with that player because, boy, is it going to add up over time. One hand or two hands or an hour or two of poker, it's not. So explain to me the result of the 1 billion traders that you built.
The results have been quite good, and we are partnering with a relatively large, not relatively, a pretty large bank in rolling this out. I must say there are one side of this is the AI, which sounds pretty spectacular, and it is, and it's kind of magical. You kind of suddenly see this code that works quite well. It generalizes. onto unseen data for years even, which is unheard of. On the other hand,
What do you
though,
mean by that? It looks at unseen data. Is that you could go backwards in time and create a simulator in 1980 and then have the results of the last 35 years?
no, but you can actually withhold data for months and make sure that it's generalizing over that. And then when we actually push the traders out to trade real money, some of them have actually shown a lot of lasting power over years even.
What do you name these? How do you name them? Are they like individual traders?
We used to give them names.
But there's too many now.
Yeah,
like
there's
Bill 732, Jason 8000.
Yeah, it's like stars out in the outer
It's like
space.
stormtroopers or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So you don't name them anymore.
No, unless there's something really interesting. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me one of the most interesting ones that you named. Because there must be one that all of a sudden is like on the top left and top right of the XY axes.
Yeah, no, but I mean, there's also, I mean, in one case we decided to give these in the historical data, kind of mess with them, hand them with a trait that they actually didn't decide to make, but hand them with one and force them to actually do something with it. So we called that the schizo system. And one of the things that happened that was really interesting, I mean, it was like, this thing goes schizophrenic and suddenly has some sort of trade. And one thing that was very interesting was that the system actually made use of the manner by which we execute in order to take a position very early on in the day and sort of inoculate itself against any sort of like schizophrenic behavior.
Wow.
So you get these surprises.
So the AI wakes up and says, "Why the hell did I sell Apple with the iPhone 6 S keynote coming up?
Well, but no,
I got to course correct."
Right. No, so the way it works is that at the beginning of the day, it purposefully takes a position, so that the way we had implemented our schizo mode, we'll see the gene, if you like, the trader already has a position and won't actually kick in. So it was kind of vaccinating itself against that, and then dealing with that. It's saying, okay, I'm gonna at least I'm consistent. I know I have a position. I'll deal with that.
So one of the issues that has come up, our good friend Elon Musk took a position, and he was, I think, on the board of DeepMind. You were somehow involved. Larry Page was an investor. I believe Larry was on the board, too, of DeepMind. I'm not sure about that, but I know he bought the company for Google. And when you start talking about the traders and schizo and injecting ideas, obviously a lot of us who are listening start to fall into the Elon Musk camp of, hey, how does this get contained? Because we've had robo-traders shut the market down, trigger all kinds of stuff. We have the front running of trades being done intentionally by people. That's pretty controversial. So now to unleash artificial intelligence on the financial system, one might say, and you're doing it in partnership with one of the largest banks in the world, you might need to be cautious about this, and maybe I'm in the Elon Musk camp right now because you might cause a global meltdown.
Yeah.
How do you not cause a global meltdown when you're effing with the system so intentionally and crazy? Do you just give them a limited amount of money to trade? He's like, here's your $20.
This is a great question. I mean, the fact is, I was pitted once against an actual trader. I think I was on a panel somewhere, and they actually had Japan's best day trader, and you know how they try to pit people against each other on a panel to make it interesting. And my whole point was, look, I have a lot of respect for what this guy does, but how much data has he seen? How many decisions has he made? How often has he been forced to get himself out of trouble?
Right.
How do you verify that this guy? I mean, you look at 1 year or 2 years worth of trading, day trading for this guy at a frequency of maybe 2 or 3 per day, maybe 10 a day at most. And you're telling me he's the best trader in the world? My traders have to go through millions and millions of decisions, some of them artificially, like the schizo mode, handed to them. And they have to come out of it not breaking the system. So yes, I agree. At the end of the day, it's technology. And since the dawn of civilization, technology can be used for good or for bad.
Sure.
I mean, the general trajectory has been that it's always been good, and you have to control it.
We did have that atomic misstep a little bit with the nuclear age.
Sure, with power comes responsibility.
Well, bioengineering, we'll see what happens. It could be a pandemic.
It's scary. Absolutely, it's scary. But I mean,
so would you put artificial intelligence in the bucket of, bandwidth and memory chips, where it doesn't feel, or CPUs, GPUs, doesn't feel like there's too many ways for it to go awry? Would you put it more in the bucket of the atomic energy, nuclear energy, and bio weapons? Where would you put it on the scale between memory chips and nuclear weapons in terms of how cautious we should be as a society? How cautious are you when you look at it? Do you look at it and say, no big deal? Or do you look at it and say, hey, this could become sentient? That is sort of the explicit goal here, is to become sentient. The name of the company is Sentient. If it becomes sentient, it decides human race doesn't deserve to exist, or the best trade in the world would be to collapse the markets and then buy everything low. Is that a possibility that one of these will wake up one day and say, yeah, let's cause mass hysteria in the market and then buy everything when it hits the floor? Because mass hysteria causes problems, buying opportunities, right?
AI today is nowhere near that.
Okay.
So if you're asking me if that's the risk today, by no stretch of the imagination is AI there. Not at all. Okay. Will it someday get there? Possibly. Are we going to forego finding the cure for cancer or preventing people from dying of sepsis in the hospital? A project that we did with MIT. Are we going to forego that simply because of a risk that we really can't even define today? No, I don't think so. I think we should bravely go ahead and absolutely be cognizant of the fact that any kind of technology that's sufficiently complex can have its risks. And so, for sure, we should be aware of that. At Sentient, we take the ethics of using AI very, very seriously. And a lot of companies, I mean, you mentioned DeepMind. They had an ethics clause in their when they got acquired. So a lot of the AI companies are taking very important steps in that direction for sure. But I don't think that should be debilitating to the point where we're like, okay, let's just not touch this.
So we're having an intellectual debate way early, which in a way is a great sign that humanity has evolved since the nuclear age.
Right.
Because in the nuclear age, it cost us, most people would say, 250,000 people to realize how high the stakes were. Now, even looking at that, and this is going to, I'm risking sounding incredibly callous here for a second, but if somebody was named the God King of the universe and they said, hey, acceptable death versus the actual potential of nuclear energy, would we actually take the 250,000 deaths as the price to pay to have nuclear energy? Now, there is a Twilight Zone episode for you. Can you imagine? That could be a really good Netflix series or something like that. If somebody had the ability to say, it's sort of like the Killing Hitler, like if you had the ability to, push nuclear energy out 50 or 100 years and avoid Hiroshima and Nagasaki, would you do it? Versus the benefit over that years. The AI might actually say the benefit was greater than the human loss.
Yes, because I think it's very difficult to quantify, what it saved. I mean, there are people that say those, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were necessary evils
to stop the war.
So
so many different things.
It's so difficult to say. Yeah, but
isn't it amazing?
Go ahead. In my opinion, some of the debate I hear around AI is similar to saying, let's not even research this stuff. Let's not even learn how to harness nuclear energy because it's going to be way too difficult, or the cost will be 250,000 people.
So back to Elon's position. His position is have some framework around all of this so that we avoid some pandemic, let's say. With bioweapons, we decided, hey, actually with bioweapons, I think we decided through a number of treaties that they're just not worth pursuing, and we have a moratorium on pursuit of them. So he's not saying ban it or put a moratorium on it. I think he's saying let's have some controls around it. When do you think controls would be necessary to kick in terms of, is it decades, or is it years? Because we all know that this is something that will happen. The machines will become sentient, right? how many years out is that? And then,
I'm more pessimistic
Okay.
than most on that one.
Yeah.
I think
Tell me.
machines becoming sentient is still a few generations away.
Generations of humans away.
Yes, I think so. There's
Our
still
grandkids, maybe.
many problems that we need to solve before we get there. Having said this, I think the ethics of using technology, I mean, just replace AI with technology and it still stands. I mean, we have drones, not a lot of AI being used in them.
No.
Yeah, let's figure out how we use or not use drones first, and then once drones become AI or sentient, then we have it. The
We're talking
framework's
about
already
commercial
there.
quadcopters right now, not the drones that are currently pummeling the Middle East.
Even that,
Even those, probably some technological discussion should have been had for sure.
Exactly.
We're actually going backwards, and it's really interesting you bring that up. We're going backwards to talk about technology being out of control. We're going backwards to try to define our morality and our ethics set around the use of drones, because we're actually using them
We're already using them.
to assassinate people, and assassination is illegal.
Exactly.
And we're assassinating our own citizens with them. I mean, talk about mind-blowing use of technology and then trying to put the guide rails back on it. I mean, the president can kill Americans outside of the country.
So
with a
shouldn't the
drone.
focus of this debate really be technology
Yeah.
first and foremost? I think.
Of course, yeah. Well, I think it's a testament to how much progress companies are making and how much faith we have in companies to actually solve this problem. It feels like you guys are doing such a good job in AI. I think really what this all comes from is DeepMind was really making some progress.
Yep.
What do you? Why did Google buy that company? What is your thinking? Because you were, I don't want to say exactly how you were involved, but you can say it if you want to. But I know you were involved a little bit with the company. Why did Google buy it?
Well, it's
Do you think?
just guesswork,
Yeah.
on my side, but they were one of the first to actually harness deep learning. It's a technology that we are also using and scaling as well, and maybe I can show you a little demo of
Yeah,
that.
when we come back from the commercial break, we'll do the demo. But define deep learning,
Deep learning is a form of neural networks. It's been around for a while now.
and now define neural networks.
Neural networks are inspired by brain networks.
Okay. Connections of
Connections of
neurons,
neurons.
all these different pathways.
Right, and they can be set up to learn classifications of. It's been used for images, unstructured data in general. Now, in the case of deep learning, DeepMind made some very interesting strides in applying deep learning to learning, for example, Atari games from scratch without having seen the Atari game a priori. The system would learn how to play it and play it in some cases better than humans.
Holy Toledo.
Yes.
So you plug in the cartridge, and it can play Tank and Space Invaders better than a human.
Exactly.
Without ever having seen it.
Without ever having seen it.
Wow.
And
That is
so
kind of mind-blowing.
it takes a level of abstraction for the system to be able to learn the fact that, here's what's happening, here's the goal of the game, here's what I need to do.
The game ends at this point.
And what kind of strategy should I adopt to be able to play it?
Wow.
So it's pretty mind-blowing what they achieved. And they've gone about it in a very principled way. Demis gave me a tour of their offices a couple of years ago.
They're in London, right?
They're in London.
They hired 40 PhDs to start. That's what I heard.
That's right. And it's
That's
research.
pretty gutsy to hire 40 PhDs in AI.
Yeah, and exactly. And you have to really have apply the discipline to these guys to be able to make constant progress and solve the problems. You went in there and it was just like software engineers with Scrum boards and agile, but applied to research. So the way they did it was really, really good. And they started publishing on this stuff. So it has a depth of research and work that's up to the scrutiny of other researchers. And it has stood up to it. So yeah, I think out of everyone working on deep learning, these guys were way ahead. And ultimately their goal was not commercialization as much as it was to solve the bigger problem of simulating human intelligence.
Okay, when we get back from this commercial break, we're going to actually see Sentient at work, a little demo, if we will. When we get back, Sentient will send its AI out into the world, and it will take everybody's Bitcoin and put it into my bank account. Is that a deal? When we go out there, we'll find every way to hack every Bitcoin, and we'll come back, ship all the Bitcoins to Amnesty International when we get back on This Week in Startups. Hey everybody, let me take a moment to tell you about a product I love and use every day. It's video hosting from Wistia, W-I-S-T-I-A, Wistia. It is awesome. And who uses it? MailChimp, Moz, HubSpot, Zendesk, Herman Miller, Sam Adams, and of course, This Week in Startups. They've got 140,000 customers, and they are growing like a weed. Now, why do we use it? Well, if we use a free service like YouTube, we have all YouTube's ads and collaterals and garbage, and it looks terrible, and it's not customizable. So it looks bad, and everything that YouTube does is in service of increasing their metrics, not your metrics. Well, what are your metrics as a business? Well, for me, it's collecting emails. 2, it's having people on my domain, my site, making it look beautiful, not having that ugly thing that comes up at the end of like a YouTube video that shows all the different videos of other people that I don't want to send my users to. I want, when the video ends, for them to watch another episode of This Week in Startups. I can control all of that with Wistia. That's why I use it. And it works perfectly on Facebook and Twitter with the cards, and you can play it natively on those platforms. It's gorgeous. And it'll give you a ton of support. You want to take control of your video. Video is a huge asset, and you want to do it professionally. The analytics program is amazing. You can see on a user-by-user basis how long they're watching, and if they rewound and watch a section twice, all this kind of great stuff. Tons of support, super easy to use. And it's built, a lot of their new tools are built for marketers, so collecting emails and that kind of stuff. And you don't have YouTube or Vimeo doing that kind of stuff. Those platforms have their own goals, which is selling ads and keeping people on their platforms and stealing those users from your platform. Start your 2-week trial for free on Wistia, wistia.com/twist. No credit card is required because they're so confident that you're going to love the service like I do. And you can upload as many videos as you like. Wistia.com/twist, W-I-S-T-I-A, Wistia.com/twist. I love the product. I love the team. And it's been fantastic for us. We got control of our own videos again, and we are now collecting emails every day, dozens of emails every week, hundreds of emails every year, thousands of emails, to build our direct relationship. That is, not have an intermediary between it, telling us how we can talk to you, our fans. We have a direct relationship. It's brilliant. I love Wistia. All right, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest, Babak Hodjat. There we go. Of Sentient, and you can follow them on Twitter, Sentient AI, and they have the very cool domain name, sentient.ai. I didn't know there was a .ai. Is that an actual country, or is that like one of those new TLDs specifically for a vertical?
Somebody bought the country, and he's selling
yes. It's like the Libya. Yeah. It was a very interesting moment in the history of top-level domains when Libya went into all kinds of turmoil. Everybody had used ly, like Bitly and Sumly and Picturely, and then they were like, oh yeah, by the way, the country's internet's going down and the routing tables will be down, so your ly is not going to work. And everybody went and took the bit.ly and bought bitly.com to try to make sure it wouldn't happen. Okay, so you've been doing this financial stuff, but your products, from what I understand, you're going to actually start to have products available to other companies to use. You're going to be like an API company or a tools company or a consulting firm or IBM. Where does Sentient live, and how would we think about the company post, doing well in the financial world?
We think of ourselves as a product company.
Okay.
It's an eat-your-own-dog food kind of deal. So we get the world's most powerful distributed AI, and we use it to build products. And yes, in the case of, for example, our deep learning product, our visual intelligence product, that is an API that third parties can make use of. Just go to sentient.ai/aware, and you'll see.
Let's take a look at it. Can we pull up Babak's computer?
Yeah, so I'm proud to say we just launched, in a very limited fashion, we launched this system.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, just
showme.ca.
This is showme.ca. It's in Canada, as I said, very limited. It's out there for us to try it out and for our potential customers to take a look.
So this is a demo, or is this an actual company?
No, this is an actual system.
Oh, wow.
It's shoes.com, and this is an actual system. You can actually buy women's boots off of here. So if we go to women and boots, that's where the AI technology lives.
Okay, just in that one topic category,
For now, it's under that topic. It's more than 5,000 boots that we have now.
Beautiful.
Here's what's really interesting about this. It's this whole visual intelligence interface that I'm about to show you was generated automatically using a combination of deep learning and online learning.
Got it.
So everything you see here is the smarts in the system, the AI in the system, trying to read my mind as the customer and assist me to find the product that I'm looking for.
Okay. So somebody didn't have to build the interface. The AI
No.
told you what the interface
Exactly.
should be.
So talking about, you mentioned API. This is exactly what happens. There's an API. You upload your inventory, and out plops this.
Wow.
This UI.
Kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. It's like, where's the product manager? He's in the machine.
It's in the
She's in the machine.
Exactly.
So
if we,
for those people who are at home, you can go to shumi.ca, click on women's boots.
That's right. That's correct. And so there's a little interstitial here. Essentially what it does is as you click around, it's very visual. As you
I'm
click
looking at it
on-
right now, the visual filter. Pull it up on the screen, guys.
Yeah.
And make it full screen, my team, here, because it would be great to see it full screen. All right, go ahead, walk us through it.
Okay. So let's just go
So
straight
it
in.
says, show me heels. I
Right.
like this
so
contour.
out of the 5,000 boots, the system has picked these 12 to represent the full inventory. And I can geek out with you a little bit in a minute about how the technology actually works. But if I'm looking for some boot, let's say I'm interested in, I don't know, buckles, let's say. So I'm going to click here. And I get a few buckles. I'm actually more interested in, let's say, this buckle here with this kind of color. As you can see, as I'm clicking around, I'm actually getting more buckles,
A new
more
cohort.
the same style.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is happening, it's very much tailored to the way I am interacting without taking my personal information.
It's pretty sick, because I'm doing it right now alongside you, and what I realized was it knows what that shoe is like. So when I clicked on orange, we started to see some shades of orange, but then there was one that was a little bit with yellow accents, and then it started steering me towards yellow,
Exactly.
and then it started steering me towards rubber. Because I started
Exactly.
going towards rubber, and now I'm seeing the yellow rubber, orange rubber, latex.
Absolutely.
Really cool boots.
So if we if I'm, let's say, if I'm interested in like this whole pattern thing, I can click on the patterns. I'm interested in this little whatever it is up there. The fact is, I cannot describe it. I mean, I don't know about you. If I want to go buy shoes, I can't say I want this little.
It's sort of like more like this, and then you have a really knowledgeable sales associate
Exactly.
there
The
saying,
sales associate comes
if
in and
you like
says,
this, you
yeah,
like
looks-
this. It's
looks
sort of
like
the
this is what you're
Amazon.
looking
People
for.
who bought this also bought that.
Exactly.
But Amazon's doing it based upon sales data. So people who bought this also looked at this. People who bought this also bought that.
Yeah, but how personalized is that, right? I mean,
It's a starting point.
it's a starting point. It has to collect information about you that you might not want to share. I mean, the fact is here that the AI is coming up with the shoe that you're actually looking for. And it's surprising. It's eerily
It is kind
good
of
at
eerie
it.
right now. I really want to get this for men's shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully,
It's almost like having, when you talked about like the best day trader in the world versus the best stylist in the world, right?
Yeah.
So here, the best stylist in the world would have some range of knowledge of the history of fashion, some knowledge of you,
Yep.
and then try to tailor something to you. Here, the machine is doing it.
Here's-
Is it doing it in real time, by the way? Or if I click on the yellow SKU number XYZ123,
Yes.
does it know what XYZ123 is similar to, or is it looking at my
Yes.
entire history and then building it?
It's using a combination of both. So it knows the similarities and differences being also important, what you didn't click on, for example. And it also knows, you can the inventory can be updated, and within minutes this thing gets updated. Now, here's another interesting thing is that when we started this off, we started off with tags that were human generated, labels and so forth. But very quickly we noticed that if we actually use auto-encoded information. So that's one of the things that deep learning does very well, is automatically identify and abstract features that are similar or different between
From the
these boots.
database or from the image?
From the images themselves.
Got it.
So in this
it
case,
knows color.
exactly, pattern, color, whether the buckle is a little higher or lower, those things,
What the buckle's made of.
what it's made of, that sort of
That's
thing
wild.
is automatically
It's
abstracted.
it's really compelling because I'm clicking on the stuff, and it's almost like it's almost like a precog. It's like thinking about what I would think about next too, because when it's pulling up this cohort of like 12 every time, based on the previous click, it's not showing exactly 12. It's showing some variance.
Yes.
What percentage of variance do you show
Yep.
to sort of lead me in other directions?
Yeah,
Or is
so-
it figuring that out itself?
It is figuring that out itself, and if you notice that the last row down there has a little bit of a more diversification
I did notice that.
to it. So it's
I
like,
noticed
you
that
know,
now that you mention it, actually.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's supposed to be all implied. It's but I mean,
Now,
just,
what about? Wait, I'll let you
I
finish.
was just about to say. I mean, obviously, we want to do men's boots and other shoes and apparel and
Yeah.
clothes and so forth. But imagine this, that someday you actually, through your interaction with the system figures out for you what is the shoe that is the best suited.
Yeah.
And that shoe might not actually exist.
Yeah, now that's interesting. So we could actually build a composite of what it
Exactly.
thinks your ideal shoe is.
Exactly.
So if I keep picking on orange with a certain buckle, it says, hey, and then it could say to the manufacturer, hey, you know what? You don't
Yeah,
have
or-
any orange
or-
with buckles.
Or even help you visualize it by actually automatically designing it and putting it in front of you and saying, is this what you want? Yes, okay, I'm going to 3D print this model, and get it to you
Bizarre.
within a couple of weeks. Not that we have that today, but I mean, you can see the trajectory, the roadmap.
Yeah,
of
I
where
mean,
this
mass
is.
customization was one of these trends that, Shaquille O'Neal had a mass customized sneaker label for a while.
Yeah.
It was way too early, but you could pick everything. The problem with it was you had to pick everything.
Exactly.
What's great about this is you don't have to pick everything.
Exactly.
You just have to click on what you like, and then it could start building.
You don't even have to be able to name everything. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just by seeing it and clicking on it, you're actually informing the system.
Okay, so how long has this been out in the wild? And then have you started to, obviously, Goldman Sachs or whoever's giving you buckets of money to keep you guys working on the financial stuff, they're sold on it. But what has the shoeme.ca little beta test? Is it selling more shoes? Is it increasing time on site? What is the actual efficacy of deploying this currently, and how long has it been out?
I'd love to have the answer to that. We just launched this Tuesday.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah,
So it's
it's
very
only
new.
been out. It's very, very early to say. We are poring over the logs and looking at the rates. Obviously, the idea is that it's going to sell much more than your
It's going to tell you
typically.
what's happening, actually. The AI should be able to tell you.
Exactly.
I mean, actually, what's very interesting is when you think about collaborative filtering, which is, I think, what they call Netflix, Pandora, and Amazon's approach, which is, hey, other people watch this. People who liked Blade Runner also like The Fifth Element, whatever, or they liked other noir films. If you like this, you may like that. That would be collaborative filtering, which means we're just studying groups of people's behaviors. Here, if you combine it with collaborative filtering, you can start to put people into buckets. So is Amazon working on anything like this? Because what seems to me would be very interesting is if you combine the two disciplines, collaborative filtering, if you bought this, you bought that, with artificial intelligence, and even if you want to cross vendors, you might be able to build something. Oh my God. Forget all these vendors. You should unleash the AI on the top 100 shoemakers. Just do Zappos, everybody's. And, you've done that already, I can tell. You may have done that
No
already.
comment.
Now, see, I can always tell. This is why being a poker player and a talk show host is great, because I saw you look down at your shoes. Speaking of AI, I can tell when, I'm hitting on something here. So you could actually know out of all of the, from all the ratings across multiple sites, because it's available by API in a lot of cases, you could actually understand the trends across all sites. Wow. You could study all the reviews on Amazon.
Here's the flip side to that,
Yeah.
though.
It's super inspiring, by the way.
Right. So in this particular case, there's no data from the user being collected. We don't.
That privacy thing is very nice.
Right. So that's what I'm. So think of the Internet of Things. Okay. The Internet of Things. Lots and lots of sensors collecting data at the point of need, and all of that being collected into some sort of a centralized, server
repository.
farm, Google repository. I mean, what
Slicing
a
into-
waste, right,
yeah.
of bandwidth, and then the privacy elements and so forth. But if you actually have distributed AI running on the point where the data is being not only consumed but also being acted upon, and have the decisions being made there, you've
No need to store it.
Exactly. You've gone a long way towards actually solving the privacy issue.
You and Tim Cook are simpatico on this issue because his approach, as you know, is we are going to make our business making $100 off $200 selling you each device. We are going to have all of your data stored locally. If we do any kind of intelligent processing, it will happen on your device with your data on your device, not on our servers. And it really is a disruptive approach. Now, what about all of the health data out in the world? Because it seems to me, you know, finance is a really smart move going after finance because they'll pay any amount of money to get any edge. Great, fund your company based on that. You know, people buying stuff. Yeah, it sounds like it could be, you know, number 2 or 3 or 4 on the checkbox in terms of monetization and people who would be willing to pay. Because if you move sales by 25 bips or abandon carts by 50 bips, it could be meaningful. But what ultimately could be the most meaningful for humanity in this regard is healthcare data.
Absolutely.
So what are your plans there? Take me through a dream scenario for you. If you could get a client, you can either pick the client or you can just give me the profile of them. Would it be a 23andMe or a Fitbit? Which one of those, if you had 23andMe's data set or Fitbit's data set, which do you think ultimately would be the most interesting for you to start working on?
It would be a combination, and
we'll put them together.
yeah. I mean, there's this guy Mike Snyder at Stanford that we're starting to talk to. We've done a bunch of projects with MIT, St. Michael's University of Toronto. We're doing a project with Oxford right now, all within healthcare. And there's a wealth of data that's being collected there. Now, Mike Snyder is really interesting because this guy. He sequenced his DNA 3 times. Don't ask me why 3 times. I don't know. But every 3 weeks, he's getting all his vitals. He's getting 20,000 different data points on his RNA. He's getting 100 and something thousand different data
just
points
for himself
on his gut. Only on himself, all himself. He's starting to expand that. He's got another 90 people that he's collecting
patient zero.
Yeah, he's patient zero. He walks around with an air sampler, just so he has data on what he's breathing. I mean, that's the level. But here's what's really interesting is that
who is this guy? He's a Stanford professor?
Yeah, Mike Snyder.
Wow.
So here's what's really interesting is I told him the first time I looked at his data, I'm like, look, you don't have enough cohorts, you don't have enough data there. And he said, Babak, no 2 people have the same reaction, even twins. The thing is that we can discover things that are very, very personalized and kind of tailor the medical and healthcare needs for people.
Right.
Simply by looking at this data and kind of coming up with these
customized
hypotheses.
Drugs,
that
even hypothesis, even before the drugs.
Exactly, very customized. I mean, he has these stories about how he went for a running, and it turned out that he ran like 5 or 6 miles right before he did one of these tests, and he noticed that there was some, RNA mutations exactly where, because he has diabetes, this was sort of helpful mutations there. This is, your body changing actually in reaction to environmental stimuli like running. So, to me, that's the future of healthcare.
Yeah.
That level of personalization, and I think you can only deal with that with AI at a large scale to be able to crunch through all this data that we're collecting.
Yeah, there's so many things we don't know that we don't know.
Exactly.
And the AI seems perfectly suited for those cases. I mean, if you could take all of the Fitbit data and say, here are, let's say there's 1 million people with Fitbit, there's 5 million people with Apple Watches, whatever. Take all the 5 million people with Apple Watches, and you have some amount of data on them, heart rate, et cetera, steps, and then you could run the next 500 million simulations. And if you got all of them to correlate just some sample of them with blood tests, oh my God, or DNA samples.
So in this case, I would even say that you can test these hypotheses within the individual's own data set. Even.
Explain that.
So, I'm just using the analogy of the running thing, right? This guy ran, and then he noticed this mutation. That mutation had not appeared ever before in all the samples he had taken from himself before.
So now you run a simulation that does what?
So at this point, there's a hypothesis that's pretty strong, even though it's only on 1 person worth of data. And now I can actually work with the patient and say, hey, look, don't run next week.
Right.
Run 3 weeks in a row. Now I've got sufficient information to be able to refute or prove.
And let's get your 5 siblings and your parents and your kids to do the same thing, and then let's do a family tree of running and RNA and diabetes.
Right, exactly. and see if that works. So we can work together. This could be sort of an interactive model.
It's crazy what's going on in the world today. What impact do you think artificial intelligence is going to have in our lifetime? We seem to both be 40-year-old guys. I'm going to take a guess, something like that. How old are you? You 40?
I'm 48.
48, okay.
Yes.
I'm going to be 45 on Saturday.
All right.
So we're both about the same age. We both are on the, let's just face it, you and I are on the second
I
half
don't
of the
know
golf
about
course.
you. I'm not, but yeah.
You're going to keep going? All right, fine. Listen, I can see the 9 holes in front of me. I know there's 9 behind me. You could be in denial all you want. You're like, I've got 12 holes ahead of me. What impact do you think we'll see in the next 40 years? And then my corollary to that question is, and before you answer the second one, of where we'll be in 20, 30, 40 years. When you started, and 20 years ago, I'm sure you were thinking about AI. Were you? 20 years ago?
Yes,
50?
all along, absolutely.
So 20 years ago when you were thinking about AI, where did you think we'd be today? Let me take that one first. So 20 years ago, you're just fresh out of school, you're in your first job, maybe you got your, third, fourth PhD, or how many you got there? You got a PhD, right?
I do have one.
How many? Just one?
One is more than
All right,
enough.
so it's brutal, right? Dissertations, defending them.
Oh my God.
A lot of politics, right? Getting a PhD is that's what some people told me, is a lot of politics.
There is a lot of that too. Yeah.
What is the politics? Let me take a sidetrack here. What is the politics of getting your PhD? What did you get your PhD in?
Machine intelligence in Japan.
In Japan?
Yeah.
Now, is it that people don't want to see the number of PhDs go up, or they want to haze you and make it difficult so that you value it? What is this
I think it's the
sadistic?
latter. It's a very militaristic system where, if you've gone through this, therefore you will inflict this on people who are going through it now.
I've heard this many times that it's sadistic. Is that true? Have you seen this?
It gets very close to that. Yeah. I mean,
Where
you have
people
to.
are just grinding other people?
Yeah, you don't, even though the substance of your dissertation might be very similar, if not the same, as what you had 2 years ago, you have to go through those 2 years or 3 years or 5 years before they let you get your PhD. Not that I'm complaining about my professor, and
I'm sure yours was flawless.
Yeah,
and
he was awesome.
Yeah. But I do hear this from a lot of people, and it's like the more abstract and narrow the field, the more contentious it becomes, is the other thing I heard.
That's another part of it, absolutely.
Now we have to have another person who actually specializes in, X,
Exactly.
1/8 of X plus Z,
Exactly.
on the
And
planet.
who's to say he's doing the right thing, because it's so specialized. I mean,
Exactly.
There's a total of one.
All right. So 20 years ago, you got the PhD, locked down. Where did you think we would be today? Where are we ahead? Where are we behind your version of 2015? Think that through for a second.
Great question. In the lab, a lot of us AI practitioners have already seen the power of AI to a point where it's just blown our minds. That's why we're dedicating our lives to it. And I think a lot of us are in it because we want the rest of the world to see that as well. Back 20 years ago, I was working not just on AI, but evolutionary computation, also artificial life. It's a field that's very green. Even today, the conference is no more than 200 people getting together.
For artificial life.
For artificial life. And, just imagine this. You have a population of what we call actors that are working together, sometimes competing, sometimes collaborating, but the emergent behavior is solving a problem. And it's super resilient. It can generalize very, very well. And, we've seen this in the lab, as far back as 20, 25 years ago. Nobody's using that today. I think the potential has been there. The potential for neural networks has been there. We've just cracked the code of how do you scale this.
How did we crack that code of how to scale it? Was it literally something as simple as like the software to do scalable computing, that EC2 and global?
A lot of it was that, in fact. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The availability of high bandwidth, processing capacity, storage, much more storage is available.
So there were some physical limitations that were holding the industry back.
Absolutely.
Or the discipline.
A lot of it was that. Actually, the algorithms themselves have been around for a while now. And the need. I mean, companies that are collecting tons and tons of data thinking that this is going to be useful for me someday, and I'll collect it because it's not that expensive to collect, are now thinking, okay,
now's the time.
Bring on the AI. Let's just make this worth our while.
So it took some period of time. So what you're saying is when you guys and gals were working on this 20 years ago, you just didn't have the data from the companies and the hardware lined up, and now the stars are starting to align.
Absolutely.
Bandwidth, hardware, CPU power, and
Investment, absolutely.
plummeting cost is you have 1.5 million CPUs.
Yep, yep.
Do you use other people's clouds like Amazon's or some combination? Or
That's what we do. Yeah, we actually make use of Amazon. We do use Amazon, but that's not part of the 1.5 million that I just mentioned. We are sourcing our own compute capacity, including GPUs. We have one of the world's largest commercially available GPU.
So you have your own server farms, or you're just co-locating or something? How does it work when you do that? You can't say.
We make use of third-party data centers, internet cafes, game centers that were designed for peak capacity or are not being used during certain hours and so forth.
Oh, are you talking about like the SETI at home? Like
very similar to SETI
distributed compute across desktops?
In most cases, it's
or servers.
It's servers or data centers and so forth.
It's fascinating. Yeah, the SETI at Home project was pretty inspiring in terms of, hey, here's a way to distribute cloud computing. But it seems like these data centers and the cloud computing revolution has kind of made that idea less relevant.
Yeah, I mean, SETI, I think
necessary?
At its peak was about 300,000 machines, and it was the noble goal of finding extraterrestrials. For Sentient to make money in the stock market, people presumably won't give you free capacity.
And they're probably going to have the money to pay for the servers, and the servers are so cheap.
That's right. Yeah.
Let me ask you just as another side question here with the GPUs, and then we'll get back to where you see it being in 20 years. Because the answer to the other one was, hey, we actually knew how far this would be. Is there anything that we're further on that makes
we saw the potential.
Anything further along? When you look at it from like 20 years ago, looking at today, is there something you go, wow, we just crushed it on that. We're so much further than I thought we'd be. Are you disappointed we're not further?
No, I think things like personal assistance, and we started our discussion around that. I think that is farther along than I expected. We never expected to actually be able to do speech recognition at this level of accuracy and for natural language processing to be where it is even in 20 years. So that has, and the concept of AI and the reality of it is now much more pervasive.
Yeah. Why are GPUs so transformative? And it keeps coming up that people are using GPUs to do processing. How did GPUs suddenly become this amazing way to do computation versus CPUs?
Well, it started with obviously the graphic processing.
Yeah.
And I think it sort of started with NVIDIA thinking, okay, if we want to sell bigger GPU cards, we need to find applications outside of just games and stuff. And so they actually started to run scientific applications and bring an ecosystem about to do that. So
NVIDIA specifically, yeah.
I think so, and then others followed. And I think that in AI in particular, you're doing lots and lots of tiny little computations. I mean, talk about a large neural network, many connections between neurons, and you have to readjust the weights on these connections over and over again. So what you're doing can be parallelized and run on GPUs, and the faster you can do that, the more real time.
It's fascinating.
Useful.
So in this case, like the neurons are like the pixels being run through the GPU.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be they found a secondary use for these
Exactly.
GPUs.
It's funny that they're mainly being used for image processing and vision too, so it kind of comes full circle that
It
way.
is fascinating. Okay, so looking out 20 years, when we're sitting here, and I'm going to have Jackie, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, book you
in 20 years.
for 2035. We got a deal? Okay.
We're on, yeah.
All right, good. We're going to make a bet here, too. Get some gambling going.
Uh-oh.
Where will we be in 20 years? Where do you think, when we look at AI, and we look back on this episode and this discussion, what will we look at and go, wow, those guys were really, that guy was right, or he was too optimistic, or my God, he was under optimistic? Like, what is this going to look like in 2035?
I think more and more of our decision making is going to be done by distributed AI systems. And I'm hoping that in 20 years, we'll be at a point where we can inject this AI juice into the points where we need decisions made, and have it learn its environment and help us make those decisions. That's, I think, ultimately where I want it to go, and that's what I want to be working on, and elevate us as humans to a different level of decision making and policy making than where we are right now.
So in 20 years, we'll trust the algorithms, we'll trust the AI to make or suggest better decisions for us than we could even do ourselves, and we'll respect in a certain way the AI because we know it's more thorough and considered, and it's taking us into account. So when we make a decision on, hey, this city needs to build some highways, and there could be a big political discussion of where the highways were going to go and who will be displaced with eminent domain, we would just look and say, you know what? We know this contingency feels this way, this contingency feels that way, but here's what the AI says.
Exactly. Here's your choices. You know, which one do you want to go for? Exactly.
And it will be like bulletproof. It'll be like, well, of course the AI got it right.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the interesting things that I see a little bit of a hint of with the Shumi.ca, very impressive women's boots, although it doesn't help me because I'm really in the market for some men's boots, but you'll get there, is that it gave breadcrumbs. In other words, what I picked, it showed the progression of, but what it didn't do was tell me why. It sort of would be interesting if I hovered over it, if it said, you know, we notice you like buckles, we notice you like brown, but you're sort of going towards more of a peanut butter brown.
Absolutely. We're working on improving the UI that way, but remember that it's keying off of tags that it automatically identified. So the concept of a buckle per se might not be something that the AI has actually identified as a differentiator here.
Right. So it doesn't know. Or it doesn't know how to say it.
It doesn't know how to say it, yeah.
Right. So that's where we have to get better, because if we're going to say, hey, where are we going to put the new highway? Where's the Hyperloop going to go?
Absolutely.
If it can tell us, hey, I've decided the Hyperloop is going to run this way, and then here are the two other options, but here's the percentage of why the Hyperloop works best in this way. And then for the people who are displaced, here's the best solution to compensate them for their displacement. I was just thinking about the way I came to that example was, what's the most divisive issue you could ever do? It's taking somebody's home, right? And eminent domain is one of those things. Like we've had to do it many times.
But it'll come out of, I mean, in this case with the shoes demo, as you saw, you know, it comes out of that interaction. I mean, at the end of the day, ultimately the driver is the human.
Right.
But the AI is just facilitating that.
Yeah. And then if it does make the decision, the ability to explain back why it thinks that. Have you guys figured that part out yet, where it's sort of telling you, like Pandora?
There's ways to do that. There's ways to reconstruct the points of decision making into, let's say, another boot that's you know, personifies, if you like, the route that you're taking. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not quite there on the UI just yet, but absolutely, that's the path that we're going
All right.
down.
Now we make our 20-year sushi bet.
Okay.
All right. So omakase at a Michelin star restaurant. You like sushi? What's your favorite food? French or
Sushi is
sushi?
right up there.
All right, let's just go with Michelin star.
Okay.
Michelin stars will be here 20 years. We make a bet on lunch at at least one winner chooses, and no more than 2 Michelin stars. So we don't get too crazy. 3 Michelin stars can be very expensive. It can be by that 20 years, we got $17,000. Quite the cost of a Prius. So we'll make a max Michelin star, 2-star Michelin restaurant, omakase lunch, chef's choice, obviously. What's the bet, though? What would be the over-under? You got to set the line. What would be a good long bet to make? In that time, what decision is made by, what's a decision that would be made, you're not sure if it would be made by machines or not, or how AI would affect our life? What's a good bet?
How about the food itself?
The food itself?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you said it's up to the chef. I would say
It'll be up
the
to the
AI is
machine.
actually making that decision for
Okay,
you.
perfect. You'll take the machine, I'll take the chef, but we got to say a number of years. Number of years before a Michelin restaurant, this is such a good bet. You got to set the line, though. You know what setting the line means? So it means you pick the number of years, I pick over under.
Okay.
right? So you set, or I could set the line, and then you pick over.
Sure,
Andrew.
I'll set the line.
Okay, you set the line. So number of years before a Michelin-starred restaurant uses computers to set the menu. Number of years.
15.
Okay, I'm going to take the over. That means you got the under. So 15 is the push. If it happens in year 15, then we'll just go Dutch. Over 15, I win. Under 15, you win. Fair?
Fair.
All right, there we go. We have
Let's
our
do
bet. My guest today, I don't know how long we've been talking. It's such an interesting conversation. I literally want to talk to you for another 2 hours. But the good news is you guys are not going anywhere, and neither am I. We're going to talk about this again next year. Really fascinating. Anything? So if developers want to work with this, how do they do that? Is there like a program? Do you have to like beg and get in, or do you just go to the site and you can start messing around?
Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah.
One of the most important reasons why we launched the company is exactly that.
Yeah.
Please go to our website, Sentient.ai, and there's a list of recs that we have up there, and we'd love to have you guys come
Start
and work
playing.
with us. Absolutely, it's
Now,
fun.
do you
very
do
fun.
outreach to startups with this technology, like, or like, and what does it cost for a startup to play with? Like, if a startup wanted to, incorporate your AI into their idea for how the world should change, can they do that?
In
or?
the case of e-commerce companies, Sentient.ai/aware is where they should go.
Okay.
For the AI itself, I'd like to hear from people who might
Got it.
have some ideas there. But
Perfect.
as I said, we're a product company. We don't sell an SDK
Yeah.
currently.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah, not a platform company.
Got it. Okay. Listen, you're an amazing guest. You're an amazing thinker, and it's I kind of feel like AI is right dead center between like the memory chips and the nukes. There could be some things that go haywire, but I kind of feel like it's 10, 15, 20 years out before we even need to worry about that. Really, if you look at self-driving cars and you look at, energy and solar and climate change, some other things that are a little bit quicker on the list.
Absolutely.
Although
I fully agree with that.
But what about this organization? There's an organization that Elon Musk funded and some other people funded.
Yeah, I signed the first letter they came
You signed the
up
first
with.
letter. What does the first letter say?
The second one I wasn't quite happy. The first one was very high level. It was like, we should be careful. We should actually research the ethics of this and, perhaps even start, something in universities where researchers are doing this specifically. I'm in full agreement with that. The second one sounded a little more invasive.
Tightening the screws a little bit.
Yeah.
And what was the core tenet of the second letter that you objected to?
There's
or
certain areas that we will not use AI. There's certain ways that we will not. Weapons I'm fine with, but it went a little further than that. So,
interesting. Do you remember what topic it went to that set an alarm off for you? Healthcare, biotech?
Yeah, I don't remember. But
yeah.
But I remember reading through it, thinking, and with an open mind, thinking that if it's like the first one, I'll sign it. But I didn't.
The military complex came to you and said, "Hey, we're going to just give you this huge pile of cash here. We need you to make our drones better at killing people, or make our bullets faster at killing people." Not interested in that money.
I'm not interested in that. No.
Because it does seem like this technology. I mean, you could literally make a drone, a quadcopter drone, regular drone, or any other kind of robotic weapon that figured out how to kill people faster.
Yes, how to kill people faster, more accurately, distinguish the bad guy from the good guy, potentially, probably better than just indiscriminately killing people. I mean, there's the positive side too.
Yeah, this is where it becomes hard to think about, because you're like, hey, what if you put AI into the drone and it said, if you see children, abort the mission.
Exactly.
If you can tell there's the percentage of civilian casualties too high, stop. This would be a very good use of AI.
Absolutely.
But I guess once you get them as a client, the fox is in the henhouse, so to speak.
As I said, we have an ethics policy that prevents us, but
it is in your as founders, you made your own ethics policy.
Yeah.
Is there any other place you stay away from than weapons?
I don't know the exact industries. I don't think it's industry specific.
It's more like how you use it.
Yeah.
What would be another way you would definitely say no effing way am I going to ever engage in that?
Well, there's privacy issues. There's areas where there's gambling, and certain areas there
right
that might not be ethical.
Yeah, for sure. If you're making a gambling AI,
like poker,
I mean, people do like to play a tough competitor. So when the Watson program from IBM came out, which I think is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Are they a competitor or not really?
Not really. No, that's more in knowledge retrieval, pre-existing knowledge retrieval. But it's
pretty
very
impressive, though.
Yeah, very impressive what they've
Yeah,
done.
complementary to what you're
Yeah.
doing, probably.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if you made a computer that then was trying to figure out how to beat other people, especially if it was covertly doing so, that would be
Yeah.
kind of unethical. Here's the thing. Luckily, we have humans who have no problem doing unethical stuff when it comes to like gambling. We have
Exactly.
the FanDuel people, the two gaming companies, FanDuel. I've got the other one. Where basically one of them was going on the other person's site using the data from their site and their insights to go gamble on the other site and beat the players on that site. So it's like, okay, we have two groups, data sets, company A, company B, doing fantasy sports. The people from company B were like, okay, we studied our data, can't be that different than company A's. Now let's go trounce company A's people. Can you imagine? It's like so unethical.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is if you think about it, one of the nice things about AI will be that it's not going to carry that kind of greed with it, that inherent human greed to beat other people or win. We have some dark aspects to our,
As long as it's controlled, like any other technology, it could go the dark way for sure. But we have to be very careful, cognizant of the risks.
Yeah, the AI is kind of neutral in a way.
The AI itself is neutral. That's why I'm saying let's figure it out for technology as a whole.
Yeah.
And whatever we figure out there is going to apply.
The self-driving car stuff, it seems like a huge field. Are you working in there yet or no?
No. I've been talking to some people who do work there, and it's just fascinating what they're looking at. And there are some ethical questions there too. Like
what?
Like, if you're about to be in a crash and you have to decide whether you hit the other car, potentially killing the driver, or hitting some pedestrians,
Or hit a tree and kill yourself.
Or hit a tree and kill yourself. So, how do you make a decision there? There are some interesting
I think
questions.
what I think is going to happen in that case? I don't think it's going to occur. I think that it's going to be such an edge case that it's not even going to be worth planning for, because if all the cars are acting in a reasonable fashion, the chances of these outliers are going to go away. The outliers are usually somebody ran in the road.
My good friend Peter Norvig at Google was asked this question, and he said, well, even if it does happen, you've logged every single decision point that this automated driver has made up until the point where the crash happened. You can go pour over that log and make sure you understand what happened and how and why it made that decision. Can you do that for a human driver?
No, they're going to lie. No, well, I mean, not only are they going to lie, they're going to lie to themselves. I mean,
might
everybody knows eyewitness testimony.
Not remember, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely shock.
But I mean, people, it's been proven with eyewitness testimony and everything, like whatever they say first, even if they got it wrong, they just reinforce that in mind. Then they actually, their brain waves
becomes their
narrative.
Memory. Absolutely.
And the brain waves support it.
Yeah.
So they literally believe, just like some devout religious people, when Sam Harris and the people at UCLA put them under, what do they call that? When they study your brainwave, CAT scan.
Mm-hmm.
They found that like the really religious people, when they said like, Jesus is the Son of God, like it was, for them, that was as factual as I'm looking at the number 6.
Yeah.
Like the sky is blue, the number 6, yes, Jesus is the Son of God. That is not a myth. Yeah. Literally true. Mm-hmm. And then there were another group, it was very interesting, of religious people who are not literal, and they were like, yeah, Jesus is the Son of God is the story, and you can interpret the story. Are you hopeful with the world? You're Persian.
Yes, Iranian, yes.
Iranian.
Persian,
And but you grew up in a lot of different places. Japan,
I did, yeah.
And London.
London, Moscow, Idaho. For the longest time, I thought the real Moscow was actually in Idaho. And then went to middle school in London, went back to Iran. Wasn't there for the revolution, but was there for the war with Iraq. And then went to Japan for my PhD. Yeah.
What's going to happen in Iran over the next 20 years? There's so many young people in that country.
Yeah.
And they seem to be, from what I've read, pretty open-minded and, dare I say, Western in their approach or thinking. People think that the place is, radicalized, but in a lot of cases, I mean, I don't know if you saw the Anthony Bourdain CNN special. Did you see that one?
I did, yeah.
It's amazing how many people have seen it. It was like looking at Americans. They were out there eating pizza and drag racing.
It's very, very similar. Yeah, and the culture, the openness, the capitalism in play there. I think I'm very hopeful for the future of
Iran.
Yeah.
Iran. It is interesting, the dichotomy between what's happening like in the Middle East, and then you look at these young people who, they love.
Yeah, and it's
They
a
have
big
a joie de vivre.
it's a large enough population that I think they can, in a generation or two, take the helm and improve things. I think in those regions we're always faced with the brain drain problem. I mean, I'm one of them, I guess. Opportunities elsewhere and just leaving, and this devolution, if you like, that happens. But I think we have a critical mass of educated, young, open-minded people in Iran that will carry the day.
It does seem like as the oil's value in the world diminishes, that each of those countries has to make a decision if they want to modernize and evolve, which means being a place where brilliant people want to do commerce, create companies, and embrace some form of democracy and capitalism, or devolve and go to, what do they call it, Shia law, and devolve into women can't vote and gays need to be murdered. It's a very interesting moment in history, but you're hopeful.
I'm hopeful about Iran. I'm not sure about the whole.
The rest is up for
ISIS and.
Isn't it crazy?
Oh my God, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's just
It is. There's no AI that's going to solve that.
Well, we could have waged a bet on that one, but I would,
really.
Yeah.
AI. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a really, really tough one.
Global understanding and there's a group of people. It really feels like the modern world. There's a group of people living in the 21st century. There's a group of people living in the 16th or 17th century, and I don't know how you can reconcile that. It feels irreconcilable to me that until one group has to move into the other group's century.
But I mean, a lot of these. I mean, you look at the Syrian refugees. They're actually feeding. They're educated and middle class. Are kind of coming into.
They want to work. They want to have a life.
But think of the void that's left there.
Who's left? The people who didn't have
either
the gumption to
leave, or are part of the bad guys.
They're either the bad guys, or they've been trapped by the bad guys, or they just didn't have the wherewithal to risk their lives to have a better life. Which means, where we started with Darwin and AI, if the best people who are the most resilient race out of the country to build a better life, now what's left on a Darwinian
and it takes several generations to rebuild the middle class that would actually take those countries and rebuild them and bring them back to the present day.
Might be the most effective measure would be to embrace those people, have them build the societies that are democratic, and just, imperfect, of course, but and then we'll see what's left there. Very sad. The world, I don't know about you, but something happens, I think, when you're at the age we are at, where you start having enough context for the world and you start to just think about it a lot more. Do you think about the world a lot, like in the sort of fate of it, the status of it?
Especially the predicament of people in these regions. Middle East, simply because I'm from that area.
Right.
I do think about that. The world as a whole has a very optimistic trajectory, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, things are in general getting better, and thanks in no small part to technology, for sure.
Steve Pinker's book about Our Better Angels is just so many.
Exactly.
So many less people being murdered or killed. It's just we just happen to be really good about broadcasting the ones who are killed.
Yeah. I think Africa has been a good example of, starting to move the needle the other way, somewhat. So maybe the same can happen. Although there's the curse of oil in that region in the Middle East, but otherwise, I think maybe there's a hope if we can find the model working somewhere else and then apply it here.
It is interesting when you look at, infant mortality. And the work Bill Gates has done, and a lot of people, malaria, just everybody looking at Africa and saying, hey, how do we get these people out of poverty?
Yeah.
The chart of people living at poverty has gone down by 1 billion.
Absolutely.
And now they actually can predict, like in 20 years, the number of people living in poverty will be de minimis.
Yeah.
If it continues on this trend. I mean, there's still work to be done. It can't just happen automatically. But we could actually live in a world where nobody's living on $1 a day. Nobody's, suffering for food.
Yeah.
It could be beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting. I'm very preoccupied by it at the time. Every time I meet somebody who's of Middle Eastern descent, I really want to talk about it because as Americans, we have such a, narrow and biased lens that we were raised with. And I'm trying to listen to the BBC and, just tune into other feeds and talk to more people about it because my view of Iran was completely different. My view of Saudi Arabia was actually reversed the other way. I thought Saudi Arabia was further along than it was. I thought Iran was further behind. And then when you start actually looking at the Amnesty International reports and who's being lashed and who's being allowed to, be homosexual in a country, like in Iran, it's illegal to be homosexual, but they don't actually.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think the government pays for sex change operations and so forth. So they're
Yeah,
very
like they're
lenient
actually
in other areas.
Yeah, they're kind of allowing it to occur and maybe not being as extreme as some other places.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. All right, listen, I could talk to you all day. You're a smart cat. Thanks to Emmy award-winning producer Jackie. She's won 4 Emmys. None working for me yet, but it's only been a year. We're going to apply to the Emmys.
Awesome.
Podcast can win an Emmy now. That's what I heard. And thanks to our sponsors and Bryce and Ashley and everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. And we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.